From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, the World Economic Forum ends in Abuja with global solidarity for Nigeria's war against terror. President Jonathan addresses World Press Conference in Abuja, warns Boko Haram, insists there is no hiding place for the terrorists. Former United Kingdom Prime Minister Gordon Brown donates $10 million to Nigeria to fight terror. And Russia celebrates Soviet Victory Day as President Vladimir Putin makes first visit to Crimea.
On Business News tonight, Nigeria's SEC is encouraging more local investments to deepen the capital market and help boost foreign companies.
And on sports news tonight, Golden Eagles coach Emmanuel Amunike sacks 4 players from camp for misconduct.
President Goodluck Jonathan has again warned that there is no hiding place for terrorists in Nigeria and that he will not sleep until the abducted Chibok girls are rescued. The president was addressing a World Press Conference at the end of the World Economic Forum holding in the Federal Capital Territory. He thanked the world community for the commitments they've shown so far and thanked the organizer of the World Economic Forum for the huge attendance. Our State House correspondent, Chukwuma Onekwusi, reports.
We must get to the root of where this thing is coming from.
There was no dull moment for President Goodluck Jonathan. Apart from the plenary session that held here, he also had no rest going up and down this infrastructure where he held plenary sessions and closed-door meetings with heads of government from across the world, past and present. One of the meetings featured the UK ambassador to Nigeria, who told journalists that the United Kingdom team is already on ground to help rescue the abducted Chibok girls.
We have about 10 people here. They are a mix of skills and backgrounds, and the idea is to start talking as soon as we can.
Apart from partnering with Nigeria, the former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown has made it possible for the world business community to donate towards safe schools for girls in Nigeria.
10 million has been created immediately. The President has just told me that the government will be supporting that fund with another $10 million. And at the same time, there's a request for the international aid agencies that I've made to add to that fund.
After all the meetings, and to round off the World Economic Forum for Africa, the President, in a press briefing, gave his impression on Nigeria's successful hosting of the event.
If they did not come, people would think that you cannot even spend the night in Abuja, but at least you'll be here with us for the period. And you've seen that the country is moving. Yes, we have challenges, but we are going to move on. But the key thing is that I'm thanking the whole world for coming, thanking all of you for communicating to the rest of the world what is happening in the country.
The support by some superpowers towards the rescue of the abducted Chibok girls has also given the President some confidence.
I'm quite pleased that the whole world is singing the same message that they must bring back our girls. And there's nowhere they will take these girls to. They have no hiding place. We must work with the global community that are quite keen to make sure that we bring back the girls. We plead with the parents as a father and the President of this country. I feel pained. I don't sleep with my 2 eyes closed. And I will not sleep with my 2 eyes closed until these girls are brought safely back to their parents.
If given the opportunity, would the President like to host the world again?
So I think the organizers will know that Nigeria is a very, very fertile ground to host the world.
Chukwuma Onekwusi, Channels Television News.
And after 2 full days of discussion, the World Economic Forum Africa has ended, with leaders on the continent urging accelerated growth potential through education and improved healthcare delivery. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Okonjo-iweala, highlighted the importance of fast-tracking Millennium Development Goals for Africa. Also, the Ivorian Prime Minister, Donald Duncan, emphasized the need to improve Africa's education system. Our correspondent, Bolaji Akinwale, reports.
The third and final day of the World Economic Forum on Africa was a basket of ideas. These range from the importance of achieving the Millennium Development Goals to having sustainable and renewable energy. The United Nations has stated that education and improved healthcare delivery must be paramount on the agenda of African leaders if they must attain the MDGs.
So, to kickstart this viewpoint, Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-iweala, was unequivocal on the growth that can only be driven by these two factors.
For me, I think education is crucial. I want to agree with His Excellency, the President of Senegal, on that, and with you on your observation, because really, if you educate girls and women, then you take care of a whole lot of problems. One area I'd like to highlight and be more critical where we are failing is on maternal mortality. Why do I say that? I say that because that's where we really do have answers to that. We know what to do. We have the technology to make sure that women do not die in childbirth. And yet, we have very high maternal mortality numbers.
Education combined with health is really important to do that. But I will say that in the sector in which we are less competitive, we have some problem, is the question of unemployment and poverty. We have to work harder on it.
Yeah. In addition to that, African leaders are advised to provide the right environment for growth to thrive.
The main thing that needs to happen is obviously good governance, institutions functioning, peace, rule of law, access to, respect and dignity of the individual, as I call it. These are the fundamentals, and there are enormous opportunities, but they're fundamentals for business as much as for governments, because they're fundamentals of society. And then the second thing I would ask is, as we develop this growth, because this continent is growing very fast, be sure it's done in a sustainable way. We have the opportunity to design the growth here in the future and not make the mistakes that have been made in many parts of the world.
Turning to sustainable energy on the continent, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Desiani Alison Madueke, sets the ball rolling on how Nigeria and indeed Africa can achieve this feat.
We have become Africa's largest producer in terms of oil and gas. Unfortunately, how that is parlayed into actual, real engagement of the polity all the way down the spectrum is a different issue altogether. I think for too long, Africa's middle class has had a squeeze. So you actually begin to have the wealthy and, of course, the poor, to put it in the best way possible. I think the work ahead of us now is to ensure that the output of these resources is adequately and efficiently, not to mention expediently, deployed all the way across the spectrum.
One of the key problems I think we have on the continent is subsidies. The subsidies that go into petroleum resources is, to be honest with you, in my opinion, is ridiculous. And I'll say this, take a country like Nigeria, we spend $10 billion subsidizing petrol. Right. Now, it's the cost of building a railway system across the country every single year. It's the cost of building 2 refineries every single year.
The World Economic Forum on Africa may be over. However, what may continue on a more robust scale is the implementation of ideas, findings from this year's meeting, and a better lifestyle for the people on the continent. Bolaji Akinwale for Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the day's first plenary session was anchored by Channels Television, a host broadcaster with a focus on youth and their contribution towards development on the continent. Some of the participants believe that growth in Africa in the last 20 years should be associated with the youth, while others say the economic challenges do not give them the opportunity to dream big.
When we're in the holding room, I told them that I'm going to ask them the very first question. Do they believe, the panelists here believe, that Africa's youth have taken their own destiny into their own hands and are shaping their future? Kola, I'm going to start with you.
Africa's youth has done something radical. The last 20 years has shown the growth in Africa. You could correlate that to this generation of Africans. The reason is Compared to our father's generation, we have decided we want a different Africa to live in, to grow up in, and also to build a better life for ourselves. If you look at the history of what a lot of countries in Africa have come, where they've come from independence, a lot of these countries were handed over to people who were trained and educated by the colonial masters. So they were taught in a certain type of way to run a polity. 60% of the continent of Africa today, from the numbers, are under the age of 30. So if you see the radicalization of what is going to happen and is happening, is transforming the continent, is the focus of the youth from areas of e-commerce, telecommunications. It's a different ballgame. And the main difference is this: we want a better continent.
You see the bright spots, you see those of us that are really stepping up and wanting to shape the future. But I think that because of the particular challenges that we have, we need to dream really big. We need to carve out really bold solutions. And it's hard to dream big from nothing, right? The way that you get to the point where you're able to dream really big is that you start with small dreams. So maybe your first small dream is you want to go to a particular high school, and then you're able to go. So you realize actually there are no limits. And so whatever world you want to see, you can create. And I think that possibly because of some of our economic challenges, not enough of us are dreaming even the small dreams, so that we can, be emboldened by our successes with the small dreams to get to the point where we are really looking around us and saying, I want to conquer poverty.
We're living in a continent that has a very huge youth population. However, I think another dimension to it is, as much as we are shaping the Africa that we're living in, we're not doing enough. It's good that, here we are, we're young people and we're playing a huge role in shaping the communities that we're living in. But how many are there of us that are actually doing that? How many are there of us that are privileged enough to be sitting at this stage? So I think if anything, those of us who are privileged enough to have platforms like this need to be advocating for the other 199 million. And
in part two, after the break, Amnesty International accuses military of ignoring abduction warning. That's in a moment. Please join us again.